Hello, here's a presentation about why you might like to start bringing in the character curriculum into your school as I did in mine. It was really over a year ago I think we decided we would bring in the character curriculum, and the reason for that was we didn't actually feel that the curriculum did anything other than teach children how to pass a test. And when we stopped and thought about why are we here, the big why question, it wasn't really to get children to pass tests. I'm sure that's not why any of your teachers choose to be in the profession they're in. So we came back to thinking about what are we hoping to achieve whilst we are here with the children? What do we want for the children? Now, our aims in our school, my two schools for instance, are composers of our own future. Okay, so we believe what we do will help our children to become composers of their own future. We don't decide what they're going to do in life, they decide, and we're preparing them for that. Now when we came back to it and we looked at this, we thought, are we actually preparing them to make decisions for themselves? Are we teaching our children to be curious, confident, collaborative, creative, caring and charitable? And are we giving them all the skills so that they can make choices themselves about their careers, who they want to be and what they want to do? And when we looked at our curriculum in great depth, we looked at those learning objectives and how we teach the curriculum. Myself and the staff, we all sat down and we decided no, we're not. Our curriculum doesn't actually reflect our aims. So we went back to square one. We threw the baby out with the bathwater and started all over again. And we started with the question, why? Why are we here? What do we want for our children? We came back to our poster and we thought, yes, we still do want them to be composers of their own future. But how are we going to deliver the curriculum to allow that to happen? So that was where we began our journey. Now the aims that we'd set out really did, for my sake as a head teacher, was to ensure that teachers created lesson plans or put lessons together that would allow them to bond with the children, love the children, care for them, like them as little people, and have dreams for them, believe in them, help them to be creative thinkers, help them to think in a different way, the growth mindset. So I would try and employ teachers who I believed could do this whilst they were teaching the national curriculum. The problem is I'm relying on the teachers to be a certain type of person, and we all know that what we see in the interview isn't always what we see in the classroom. So what we start doing is we start micromanaging the teachers. We start wanting to check those lesson plans to see if they are actually teaching the children to be active citizens and healthy mentally and physically, and being kind to each other and doing things in this world that help them to show compassion and creativity. So we're making work for ourselves because we are micromanaging professionals now, and therefore the teachers start doing it to please us. Not all of them, some of them do it quite naturally and some do it as a bolt-on. They say, I've got to teach the curriculum, but I also apparently have to teach the children how to be curious and creative and collaborative, and they keep checking that they're doing that and they're pleasing you as a head teacher. That's not really how we want to work. I don't want my workload to get greater, and I don't want their workload to get greater. I also don't want my staff to feel that they're being micromanaged. They are highly skilled professionals. And so therefore, to suggest that they bolt all of this onto a national curriculum isn't doing them any justice as a professional. So it's time to turn it on its head. Composers of our own future, are we? Well, actually no. If we are going to follow the curriculum in a very linear fashion, going through subjects an hour at a time and just going through those objectives, ticking them off, how are we teaching children to compose their own future? We're not. If we teach them facts and we tell them to remember them, and it would be great because they'll pass their tests, are we teaching them to plan their own future? Absolutely not. So why are we doing it? What future are we preparing them for whilst we're doing that? Basically, if we're saying we're preparing them for the future, we must know what their future is. So what jobs are they going to be doing? What businesses will they be involved in, and what technology will they be using? If you don't know the answer to those questions, then you are not preparing them for their future. If we don't know what the future is, and we don't know what's out there, the technology they're going to be using in 10 or 20 years' time hasn't actually been invented yet, then how are we preparing them? By teaching them the technology? We can't. By the time they learn the technology, it will change. So we're not keeping up with the times for them. We're not keeping them ahead of the game. We teach them facts. Well, they're only historical. How do we teach them about the future? We don't. We teach them about themselves. We teach them about the world around them, and we teach them how to work with others. So actually, we're teaching them how to grow character attributes. So whatever happens in the world, they will be able to adapt and change and adopt. So here's a child who's coming into reception class, and basically what he's asking us when he enters the school is, what technology can I use in class to help me to be that person in 2045, to be the person I choose to be? How will I know what businesses will want from me? What kind of job will be on offer for me, and what knowledge do I need? We need to know the answers for that, really, in order to prepare them. Or do we? So, what's our intent? Okay, so these are the buzzwords from Ofsted, but actually we're calling them buzzwords, but intent is a sensible thing. It doesn't hurt to always keep coming back to the why. Why are we here? What do we want to achieve? What are our curriculum objectives? What do we want people to be able to know and do by the time they leave? I don't think it's unreasonable for every school to occasionally sit down and ask themselves that question, and then have a look and see, are we actually doing what we want in our intent? So I sat down with the staff and we talked about the intent and what we want for our children, and we came up with this. So at Croghanminster Gunn, the staff sat down and they told me, this is what I want the child to have achieved by the time they leave school. You won't see on there a pass in SATs, because that is not why we work in our schools. Absolutely not. We do not teach a child to pass a test. What's lovely and what's wonderful and what's highly respected about these members of staff is the sorts of things they want the children to have acquired are all character attributes as well as knowledge. They will have knowledge and they will have a love of learning because they are in an environment that makes it exciting and relative. So these are all the attributes our children, we hope, will have by the time they leave end of year 6. Now, we don't leave it with hope. We look at our implementation and make sure that we are making opportunities for them to learn these attributes and to learn it about themselves, but also learning about other people. So in our implementation, we have to think about, are we teaching these? And if we're not, why not? How can our children have these character attributes if we don't ever teach them to them? How are we encouraging progression as the children go through the school? And I'm not just talking about knowledge in the curriculum. Of course we want progression and knowledge in the curriculum, but we also want progression in their understanding of those character attributes about themselves and about other people. Are the staff trained? Do the staff buy into this? Do they think it's important? So we divided all our subjects up into 3 areas of learning: sense of the world, a sense of self, and a sense of others. So this is where we threw the baby out with the bathwater. We decided we weren't going to teach subjects as separate entities. We weren't going to do an hour of history and an hour of geography and an hour of science and so on and so forth. Instead, we got all of our objectives and we threw them all into the pot, and then we divided them out into these 3 areas. So these are the 3 areas of learning now. So let's take, for instance, science. We divided up all the science objectives into 3 areas. This is a sense of the world. So if we look at year 1, for instance, we listed the things that children need to learn in the national curriculum that would probably fall under sense of the world, such as plants and living things, identifying and naming animals, apparent movement of the sun, and seasonal changes. There's not a lot there, but the character attributes we could actually teach are investigations and curiosity for our children. Then the ones that fell under a sense of others in year 1 were seasonal changes, so it comes back to our experience and other people's experiences of weather, and then the decisions made around weather, their materials of homes, and the choices that we make between what we wear or how we build our homes, habitats, and animals, describing and comparing animals and the food that they eat or that we eat. So looking at diet. Now, the character attributes to be covered here are collaboration, compassion, happiness, community, dignity, and so many more. But for us, that would be the focus whilst teaching those areas. And then under sense of self, the clothing for seasonal changes. What do we wear? Materials that we might use, our habitat, and how we look our bodies, the basic body parts. There's not a lot in there really. There's not, when you break it down to the very basic key learning objectives, there really aren't that much to cover. So if we take all of year 1 science objectives, there aren't that many for a whole year, and then divide it into 3 areas. So what we did then is we turned all of those objectives into projects. So taking all the objectives for all the subjects into one pot, look at 1 year group, let's say for instance year 1, and think of a project that you could cover. Now the project is actually what drives the character attribute. It drives how we are going to get our children to be thinkers, to be compassionate, to care about other people, to care about themselves, and that be actually our aim, not the knowledge. The knowledge is something they collect along the way if the job's done properly. So let's say in year 1, with sense of the world, sense of others, and sense of self, we take all those objectives from all those subject areas and put them in one pot. We explicitly teach literacy skills and math skills because they will need them in order to be successful within their project. So they have real purposeful learning within literacy and maths. There's a reason that they're learning it, and they will want to learn it because they know it will help them do even better in their project. At the end of term, there is a huge celebration of learning. So we look at what we've found out during our research, what we understand, why evaluating how useful it is, and then using things like art, DT, music, drama, all of those wonderful things that tend to fall off the curriculum to share what we found out, whether it be through a play, it could be something recorded, it can be anything, it can be artwork or DT work to share with our community, to share our understanding of what we've learned. And this, you can use this model, if you like, for anything. To be honest, we've used it with climate change so that the children can look at climate change as their project. Is there such thing as climate change? If so, what does it look like, and what can we do? Now, their celebration at the end will really be a way in which they will share with the community what they have found out, why they feel strongly about it, and what advice can they give to their community to improve the situation. Our children are becoming active citizens within our community. They're part of a global conversation. They are global citizens as well as local citizens. They are very active, and everything they have learned has had real purpose and meaning. But they didn't learn fractions because they were told they had to learn fractions. They learned fractions because it helped them within their project get a better understanding of the research. So they then become an incredible citizen driving a vehicle of knowledge to create change. They are not coming to school just to memorize things. What's the impact of this? Well, we have to think about the impact we have on children. Of course we do. And the impact for us is that children will be more involved in community events, more involved in national events and global events. They will have a better understanding of what's happening in the world. They will be part of the conversation and part of the solution, more importantly. But along the way, they will collect an enormous amount of knowledge. What we have found is the children learning this way are learning far more. They're gaining far more knowledge than if we had taught the curriculum explicitly. And they are certainly gaining character attributes they didn't gain before. So that's the impact for us. Let's think about our subject leaders as well. Our subject leaders can begin to see how the knowledge in their subject is being taught through a project. and actually interviewing children and looking at the project work they are doing, their level of understanding goes far, far deeper. It's not just about memorizing information, it has real relevance. So when we talk to the children about the knowledge around their geography learning objectives or history learning objectives, they can put it into many more contexts. They can give a much deeper level of understanding when discussing it, and that goes into the long-term memory. These children aren't going to forget these facts at all. Now we believe, based on what we've done, our children are composers of their own future. They've learned how to be interested, be curious, do their research, find out information, work collaboratively with others, share what they know, listen to what other people know, listen to other people's opinions, be aware of themselves, their own thoughts, their own feelings about things, the knowledge that they have. They must be aware of other people and the knowledge they have, their feelings, how things affect them, looking at it from numerous points of view, being much more open-minded. They also have to look at the world around them and how things in life impact the world, how their behaviour and the behaviour of others impact the world, and what they can do about it. They become active citizens. That gives them confidence, and that confidence is going to help them adapt and change as life goes on, make their own choices, educated choices in life. Therefore, they will compose their own future. They will make the right choices, but with a bank full of knowledge and a real understanding of themselves and others and the world around them. So here's the girl at the top here. She's driving forward in her career, her life ahead, and she's building knowledge all the way. Now we believe we're successful. So I would say to anyone considering rearranging, redesigning their curriculum, the character education for me is by far the most important one, simply because we don't know where our children will be in 20 or 30 years. We certainly don't know what the world will look like. At the rate of change, it's impossible to imagine. But what we do need to do is build the person so that they can embrace that change and forge a way forward for themselves with confidence and curiosity and lots of knowledge along the way. Thank you for listening, and feel free to use this as a training tool, or if you would like to use it with some support, just get in touch.